All right, so this is video or week number 2. And let's get into it. So last week I started talking about wanting to be more honest with not just the world around me, but with myself, and wanting to hold myself to various standards. So I'm going to do a weekly thing about how well I've been doing over the past week in 5 different categories. And given that last week's video was something of a catastrophe, not just very poorly planned, we're going to call this kind of the first one. I don't believe we're just going to let the last one die. But we'll still call it week 2. So, finances. I pulled up the numbers just before I sat down. I have $3,915.85 in various debts that I'm worried about at the moment. Those are varying levels of urgent, and I'm not super concerned about them, given that most of them flow directly or indirectly from having moved across the country recently. And I currently have, with the job I'm working at right now, I have about $700 a month to put towards those debts. So I will let you know as that number goes down. But in essence, I have about $1,400 in credit card debt that needs to be a priority. I have $1,500 I owe to my parents that actually is like 7 years old now, and I have been trying to pay it back for some time, so this is a good time to take care of that. And I have 3 smaller debts, but those will probably have to be the priority. $500 for an ambulance ride that I took 3, 4, 5 months ago, and that I was not aware at the time was not covered by the health plan, which is fine. And I owe $500 to family for a couple of small things. I also have 2 huge expenses that are coming up. One, it looks like I'm going to have to transport my cats out to Alberta to join me here, which on the one hand is awesome. I really want to have my cats back. On the other hand, it will be expensive because I'm going to have to get them flown out. And the other is a commitment from way back when I was on the board of the Old East Village Community Association. There's some signs for houses in the neighborhood that I promised to print out, and we are finally finishing the research on them. Or the research was finished some time ago. We're finally getting all the details in place. And that's quite possibly going to hit me for $500, something in that territory. Probably less, probably more like 4, but still more than I would rather be paying. So my intention at the moment is to put $50 towards my credit card debt and $30 in an envelope for my father every week. With that sort of being a regular dribbling in. And then the other debts that I have will be paid off in lump sums as I have the money to do so. My hope is to have the ambulance paid by the end of the month. Which I should be able to accomplish. Okay, history. Yesterday, I had the pleasure to attend a meeting of the Advocacy Committee of the Edmonton District Historical Society, which was a lot of fun. And I met some cool people, and it looks like this is a group that I'm going to be a part of. I've got a couple of projects that I'm sort of slowly working on from a history perspective. I want to start a YouTube channel called West Story, where I talk about the history of Western Canada. I have some scripts on some videos on Western Canada's railway history that I have not been working on for the past couple of weeks. So I will get back to work on those. And the El Mirador documentary is something that I'm working on, and I have a number of people who have volunteered to help with the research, and I just need to get them sufficient instructions, and I promised to do so a week ago. So this is probably, like, getting out those instructions is probably priority number one for history at the moment. Church. I went to church last Sunday. I'm also seeking a spiritual director. I have a de facto spiritual director, although I'm not quite sure she would use those terms. She would use that term. Actually, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't. But I'm looking for a de jure spiritual director as well. And I have spoken to there's a formal spiritual director process here in the Diocese of Edmonton, which there isn't in the Diocese of Huron. So this is something I'm new to, and I'm not quite sure exactly how it's going to work, but it's something that I want to try. I have so many ideas as to things I want to do church-wise. I am actively working on putting together a video on the service. Again, I like making videos. It's fun. However, that video I haven't done any work on for the past week. Which is, I've been putting it off and I need to get back on it. But I also want to do an oral history of the Diocese of Edmonton, but that's a huge project. And I've been talking with some friends about possibly doing some kind of intentional community. But that's years, or at least a year off. Probably years off. But it's a fascinating idea. And one of these videos I want to sit down, I want to sort of take some time out and talk about how I feel about monasteries and permanent religious communities, and how increasingly my Anglicanism has been getting somewhat political, but we'll talk about that later. So the big one at the moment is the introspection. I have been doing a lot of sort of sitting down and trying to figure out who I am and how I am who I am, if that makes any sense. I recently came out on Facebook as asexual. I mean, I'm somewhere on the asexual spectrum. I don't know that so if you sort of have, over on this end of the spectrum is sort of completely heterosexual or homosexual, and over on this side of the spectrum is completely asexual, then I'm probably like here-ish? Like, I don't know. I'm working through a lot of things. Also, there has been an outpouring of support on the Facebook post, and none of which I have responded to yet, for which I deeply apologize. I will get on to responding to that, I promise. So I'm going to leave a really good video in the description talking about asexuality in general and different kinds of asexuality. I fall somewhere in that spectrum. I'm still working on exactly where. So the gentleman talks about it much better than I do. But like, there's other parts of, so I'm aware that I can be very abrasive at times, and I want to work on that. Like, this is not a thing that is necessarily ideal. I've been reading a lot of C.S. Lewis of late, and I've been reading some Wait But Why. It's an online blog. He talks about procrastination in the context of what he calls the instant gratification monkey, which sounds humorous. It is humorous. The blogs are very funny, but it's actually been extraordinarily helpful as well. So that is, actually, I will leave some useful Wait But Why blogs in the description as well. There's a couple of them that I have found extraordinarily helpful. The introspection part of my weekly video is likely to be a little chaotic and all over the place. It's not unrealistic to suppose that I'm going to be like, oh, I have found out something about myself 2 weeks from now, only 3 weeks from now to be like, you know what, I think I went a little overboard last week. And unfortunately, that's just the way it's gonna have to be. I have not done any really solid introspection work for a while now. And so if I'm to do some of this, some of the conclusions I'm going to come to are going to be a little all over the place. And it's going to be a matter of working at it over time. And lastly, self-improvement. When people hear self-improvement, they probably think more of introspection, and honestly, all the things I'm talking about are self-improvement in one sense or another. By this category, what I'm specifically talking about is over the years I have actively worked on learning things, on coming to a position where I know more. But I want to take a few things and come to a position where I can do more, which is a different thing. So right now I'm taking dance lessons, and I am also actively looking at becoming a better cook through experimentation. I'm not wedded to those two. I want to do fencing as well. I would love to take music lessons. But those are the two that I'm starting with. I didn't do any cooking this week, so once again, I am failing to live up to all the things that I want to do with myself. But I did go to dance lessons this past Monday, and it was an amazing experience. There was a moment towards the end of the night where I'm used to interacting with people in a academic, intellectual way. In other words, when I deal with people, I'm used to dealing with their minds. And the raw physicality of dancing with someone, of dealing with someone, and dealing primarily with the physical meat space of their body is new to me. Not entirely new, but mostly new to me. And there was a moment towards the end of the night last night where, because of what we were doing in the dance classes, I was supporting... no, I wasn't holding a woman up, but I was supporting probably 10% of her body weight. It was enough that it was very noticeable. And, that hadn't struck me as the sort of thing that would be revelatory, almost. It was like, oh, yes, the world is made up of things that are physical and real, and I've spent a lot of time doing philosophy and theology and social studies, and I know social studies, all of those three, have their roots in very real things. But I tend to approach them in a very academic way. And so the raw reality of being like, oh, there is a certain amount of weight that is being pushed down into my arms, and the holding up of that weight is integral to what I'm trying to do, was a really interesting experience, and yeah, vaguely revelatory, and I'm really not sure where to go with that. Anyway, enjoy, and I will talk to you all next week.